Hello, everybody out there in Facebook land. It's Friday, February the 24th. Here I am coming to you live like I always do around this time. Fiona Lukeis here. I'm going to give the live a bit of time to filter through so that people are aware that I am live. So today's live, I've got a couple of questions I want to get through. It's really hot here in Melbourne. Another hot day. We are in the final throes of summer, and summer is really, really giving it to us at the moment, which is lovely. It's lovely and warm today, about 30 degrees, which is beautiful. And I'm certainly enjoying the warm weather. I've got my puppy at my feet, and I am here ready to answer any questions that you may have around relationships, life, anything that I can help you with. Like I said, I've got a couple of questions that I'll share with you, but I'm going to give the live a little bit of time to filter through so people can see that I'm here. That if you are just coming on board, and I can see a couple of people joining, feel free to say hi, let me know where you're listening from. And if you have a question, feel free to pop it in the chat there, or if you just want to say hi. I always love to know where people are listening from. Just pop it in the chat and I'll answer any questions that you do have. Okay, so there's been a couple of interesting things that have come up in my client work this week, and that's what I generally share with you on these Friday lives. The themes and things that I've seen come through in my client work or with the students in my Relatable program, because what I generally find is that when there are things that are relevant to my clients or students, that generally tells me that they're going to be relevant to a wider group of people, and that's why I like to share them during these lives, because as some of you know, if some of you have been following me for a while, we are far more similar than we realize. There is an inherent sameness amongst humans. That's super, super important. And I think it's super important that we actually start to look in the difference. We start to look in the vicinity of our sameness. Okay. When we do that, we are a lot calmer. We aren't so reactionary. We aren't so quick to take offense. We don't take things so personally. We find that we have more space and room to create goodwill, connection, emotional safety, all of the things, lightheartedness, playfulness, all of the things that have relationships really thrive, right? We have that ability to show up and listen well. So everything that I do is about pointing you in a direction where you are looking at the way human beings work. We're looking at the way, and notice I use the word human beings. We're looking at the way human beings work. Okay. And when we look in the direction of how human beings work, there is a sameness there. There is an inherentness in that we can draw from, where we can see I am you, you are me, and we are far more the same than we understand. And it doesn't matter what gender you are. As human beings, there is this inherent space that is the same in all of us, where we create our reality, how we relate to our thinking, where our experience of life actually comes from, our psychological functioning. These are the same in human beings. Yes, we look different. Yes, we respond differently to things, but the way it all works is the same. Okay. Now, if you think about it like this when I'm talking about the same. We all have a digestive system, don't we? Whether you're male or female, everyone has a digestive system. Whether you're male or female, people have a reproductive system. Whether you're male or female, people have a hormonal system. Whether you're male or female, people have adrenals. We have, do you know what I mean? We have these systems inside of us that are the same. That's what I'm talking about. Now, you've got to have an understanding of how we actually work in order to really see and appreciate this. But when we do, we come back to that understanding, and that's what we draw from. Instead of coming back to our past, our belief systems, our history, all the water under the bridge, all the stuff that gets in the way, we start to come back to what is inherently our sameness. And that is where we get the power and the leverage to create something else from. That's where we get an expansive state of mind. That's where we can actually put things down, is when we're looking in the direction of sameness. Okay. It's harder to do that when you're looking in the direction of differences. It's harder to do that when you're looking in the direction of all the things that have happened in the past, right? We get waylaid by that, we get bogged down by that, and we get stuck and we just sink. Right? This is what I see people doing. They're sinking, or they're treading water, okay, not getting any traction because they're looking at all of that stuff instead of seeing the inherent sameness that is true in me, in you, in all of us. The innate humanness that exists in us all. When we come from that place, we create understanding. And, as I say to people a lot, when there is enough understanding, there is no conflict. Or when there's enough understanding, people get over conflict very, very quickly without the sticky residue, right? And so that basis of understanding is the place that my clients are drawing from when they're wanting to reconnect, that my relatable students are learning how to draw from, so that they can show up the way they want to, so that they can create the change. That's the difference. It's not looking at all of the things that separate you, all the differences, and we get caught up in those because we judge each other's differences, don't we? We decide someone else's difference is not as good as ours, or better than ours, or right, and it creates all of this insecure thinking, which creates division and is the complete opposite of connection, which is what we're trying to create, right? So when there's enough understanding, there is either no conflict, or when there is, people get over it like a bump in the road, instead of this enormous mountain that they feel like they've got to climb over, right? Now, you start bringing enough of that, you'd be amazed at what is on offer. You'd be amazed at how quickly things can change. You really would. Anyway, if you've just tuned in live, feel free to say hi. I do love to know where people are listening from in the world. And yes, I do have a couple of questions, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Just pop them in the chat below. Hi, Robin. Thanks for saying hi. Hi, Fiona, listening in the background as I'm working from home from Adelaide. Okay, cool. All right. I presume if we're having a nice warm day here in Melbourne, then there must be a nice warm day in Adelaide. Our weather tends to follow yours, doesn't it? So thanks for saying hi, Robin. And as always, Brian, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for saying hi, Brian, and being here. And anybody else who wants to say hi, let me know where you are listening in the world from. I know this is a terrible time for those of you in the UK, but it's a great time for the Aussies, the New Zealanders, people in the US, Canada. And so I had to kind of go with the majority when I booked the time for this. All right. But if you are listening to the recording and you are in the UK, hello to you. Feel free to post a question below and I'll answer it, or you can send me an email to hello@fionalukeis.com.au. All right. Hey, Christine. Lovely to see you, honey, from Palmerston North in New Zealand. And, big love and hugs to our New Zealanders. They've had a really intense cyclone hit them. And, there's devastation in there that is just really quite extraordinary. So, all our Kiwis over there, you are in our hearts and our prayers, and we are sending you all of our love. And of course, to everyone in Turkey and Syria, we are sending you our hearts and prayers and love, and whatever we can do, because that is an unbelievably horrific situation over there as well. Now, anybody else who's just joined in, if you want to say hi, you want to ask me a question, please feel free to post it below. And I'm going to actually answer a couple of questions that have been emailed into me this week, so just bear with me while I answer those. But if there's anything else you want to know, pop it in the chat. Okay. Hi, Fiona. I've listened to all your podcasts and listened to your lives, though on playback as I'm in the UK. I love listening and feel like I'm learning so much. My question would be, I've started chatting via text to someone new over a couple of weeks. However, I feel as though whatever I say doesn't get acknowledged, in the sense that he doesn't refer back to what I've just said, or doesn't always answer my questions. Am I making too much of this, as it's early days? But I tend to acknowledge what he says and answer his questions. But then he's telling me how he enjoys our conversations and can send lovely words and compliments. And lovely words and compliments me. Help, I don't know what to think. Okay, great question. Great question. Now, this is one of those questions, and I do talk about this in my ebook, that I think is a great reflection of separate realities. Okay. So I talk about separate realities in my ebook because I think understanding separate realities is life changing in relationships. It's very, very, very important. And why I devoted a chapter to it in my ebook because when you understand separate realities, we don't buy into, which is what this lovely person is doing here. We don't buy into all of our fears when someone doesn't show up the way we respond the way we expect them to, when someone doesn't do things the way we do. Right? See, if you listen to what this lady's saying here, what they're saying is, well, they don't answer, they don't always respond to what I've said. So that has me feel nervous because in my world, that's what you do. If someone says something, you acknowledge what's been said and then you respond. This is how you do things in my world. So in their reality, this is how you do it. Someone sends a message and you acknowledge what's been sent to the message and then you respond. Now, this person is not doing that, right? They're not doing that. Now, in their reality, maybe that's not how it doesn't even occur to them. Maybe in their reality, they don't realize that responding first and then sharing whatever it is that they've got to share is important to you or is even a thing, right? Got to understand, we all live in separate realities. No two people see the world the same way. No two people have the same understanding of something. This is such an important thing, honestly, because we go through life and we assume that someone else sees what we see. We assume that someone else has the same thinking we do. We assume that someone else is relating to things the way we do. And so when we look through that lens, it makes no sense that they aren't responding the way we would. They aren't communicating the way we would. They aren't doing things the way we would. Because in our reality, this looks like the only way, right? Or the best way. Or does that make sense? In our reality, because it makes so much sense, this is the only way to do something. Now, one of the things you've got to understand, guys, is there's infinite realities out there. Infinite. Infinite. Now, if you sit there and think, well, that's a stretch, I love to use the example of a snowflake. Okay. Think of how much snow there is currently covering the globe, and then think of the fact that every single snowflake that's out there has its own unique design or pattern. If you've ever looked at snowflakes under a microscope, none of them look the same. They all have their own unique design and pattern. That's a lot of snowflakes, right? One flake of snow, each flake is completely different. Quite beautiful and extraordinary, but different. So if you can see that in a snowflake, well, you see this in a human being, right? It's like none of us have the same fingerprints. Okay, we all see the world in our own unique way. So what you've got to understand is you're assuming that this person sees things the way you do. You're assuming that the fact that they're not responding might mean something, and that's going to be your fear coming out, or that they don't care about me, or they're not as interested, or that maybe what I'm saying isn't interesting to them. You're going to make that mean something simply because you're presuming that they see what you see. When you realize that no two people see the world the same way, and that's fine. The great thing is it actually enables you to realize that there is no such thing as a reality or the reality. There's just what you see in this moment of now. And what you see in this moment of now is one of billions. So it's not the best, it's just one of, okay? Right? And so this enables you to be a bit more curious about this, honey. You've got to be curious about it. Now, I think what is really interesting is that if you look at this, he talks about how much he enjoys your conversations and he sends lovely words and compliments, right? You can see it. So he's just doing things his way. You're doing things your way. What you want to just do is just accept that he does things his way and you do yours your way. One is not better than another. One doesn't mean anything, but this is in his reality what makes sense to him, and this is in your reality what makes sense to you, right? There's nothing else going on other than that, okay? It's really, really important to see this. And just notice that you get worried because you start to think that the fact that he doesn't respond means something. No, it doesn't mean anything. He's just in his reality and you are in yours. Okay. And it's okay for people to be in separate realities. This is just how it is anyway. Okay. Hey, Deborah, thanks for saying hi. Exactly. My boyfriend is like this. He does not see responding to text timely like I do. We have talked about this, about his and my expectations. All right. So it's neither right nor wrong. If you decide it's right and wrong, then it will be. It's just how he is and how you are. Okay. It doesn't mean that there's a problem. See how we can create stuff that isn't there because we think that the way we do things is that way. Got to remember, guys, there is no that way, right? There is no that way. How can there be a way when there's billions of ways of experiencing something? Okay, billions. Think of the snowflake example. All right. And I actually just saw the most gorgeous I follow David Attenborough on Facebook because I love the pictures he sends through on nature. He sent through these amazing. I saw this amazing photo. It was of the sand. It was a picture of granules of sand on a beach in Japan, and each granule of sand had its own design. It was incredible. So it was being looked at under a microscope, and each granule of sand was this exquisite, beautifully designed granule, and each one of them were different. Like when I get my head around that, right? What is out there in the world, yet it's got its own unique design, but all comes from the same place, but it has its own unique design. It all comes from the same place. Sound familiar to the human? We have our own unique design, but we all come from the same place. We all sing from the same song. As I heard, and I heard those words by an Aboriginal elder that was doing a presentation on something I went to last Friday, which was just beautiful. He was talking about we all sing out of the same song. We do. We all come from the same song. We're all made of the same thing, but we do have our own unique expression. But we've got to remember, right? Our own unique expression is not all there is. Very important thing for people to understand in life, because this is where people get really, really bogged down because they think the way they see things, the way they do things is all there is. You've got to understand that that is a small little snapshot. There are billions and billions of realities in the world, unlimited, infinite. How you see things is not all there is. So our ability to expand our minds is an amazing thing when it comes to the quality of our relationships and the quality of our lives, but that's a whole other conversation. Okay. Brian, I totally agree with Fiona. On a different side, building a connection via text is incredibly different because feelings get painted that could well be and truly not even in reality. When in person, we have a greater chance of feeling who they are rather than assuming who they are and what the feeling is. Online dating is a great way to meet, but keep conversations simple and don't paint pictures via that communication. It's a great way to be disappointed when time is spent in person. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, we tend to operate from assumptions, don't we? This is what humans do, and when we do that, we tend to come from our own reality. So, it's a great exercise in understanding separate realities and a great example of that. So, I hope that that's helpful. And yeah, so much. Thanks so much for your comment, Brian. Love it. Okay. So, next question, and Deezer, hello, darling. It's always so lovely to see you. Thanks for saying hi. I hope that it's still snowing there for you in Colorado. Beautiful Colorado. Okay. Next question. Now, this is quite a long question, so I'm just going to. I won't read it all out because I could be reading here for 5 minutes. This is someone who listened to my Facebook Live on guilt, which is what I talked about not last week, the week before. I talked about how guilt plays up in our lives. So I have a question related to your talk on guilt, which relates to a partner getting caught up in relationships with other people on 2 occasions. This has got me questioning. In both cases, he started to treat me quite nastily and talking at me and getting irritated. This got me questioning what was going on and led to him telling me he was in love with someone else. Perhaps he lashed out because he felt guilty. Our relationship dwindled to merely living like flatmates. He would wear headphones, watch YouTube and Facebook videos most of the time when he wasn't working. This made it difficult to communicate with him, and I virtually put my life on hold to deal with it. I realize now from what you're saying in your video that he was disempowered and I was not giving him the space. I think that's a really great insight, okay? And carrying on with my life and inviting him to join in if he chose to. Yep. That's a really cool insight. I was just waiting for him to come out of it and get on with our life together. I've tried a few times to talk seriously with him about a relationship, but nothing seems to help. That was 3 years ago now. So we lived like that for nearly 2 years, when he started to behave badly towards me again. Is he feeling guilty? I think him being so withdrawn is also coming from guilt. Okay. He's told me he wants to get back together, but says the words and then doesn't back it up with messages or calls. Look, I guess the thing is, honey, he may be feeling guilty, but I don't think that's what this is about. I think what's really important here is this is more about you than it is about him. Okay, as things mainly are, to be honest. Okay, it's not always it's not always an easy thing to see, but this is more about him, more about you than it is about him. Okay, and what I mean by that is you're sort of saying that you're trying to show up differently and you're bringing something else to the table, and he says that he wants to change but the actions aren't there. If someone's actions are not backing up their words and they're not willing to take ownership over that, right, you have to decide what it is that you want to create for yourself. I talk about this a lot with my relatable students. Okay, you are the creator of your life. Okay, you have to decide what you want to create for yourself instead of waiting for someone else to create it for you. I'm going to say this again. You have to decide what you want to create for yourself instead of waiting for someone else to create it for you. When you're waiting for someone else to create what you want for you, you are always going to be disempowered. You're always going to be giving your power away, and you're not living your life from a place of sovereignty. Okay? You're living your life from a place of, I'm waiting for this person to change, etc., so that I can get on with my life. I'm waiting for this person to do A, B, and C so I can get on with my life, right? You're completely giving your power away. Now, I don't say that from a place of right or wrong or good or bad. It's just a matter of this is what's going on and what is it that you want to create for you, okay? If you're being clear, if you're showing up with goodwill and neutrality and all of those things, then it's up to the other person what they want to do with that. And for many of you, when you get clear on what it is that you want to create, you've got to look at that relationship and say, is this a match for that? And if it's not, what do I want to do about it? And that might be, I'm going to go and do a course like my course Relatable, shameless plug, but Relatable is a brilliant way for you to get clarity on that, get a sense of what you want to create, get to know yourself, show up the way you want to, put down all that confusing mental load. It's awesome for all of that stuff. Okay. But you want to say to yourself, okay, well, this is what I want to create. The relationship's not a match for that. What do I want to do about it? And it might be that you go and get some help. You go and work with someone. You go and do some stuff for yourself so that you can feel empowered and look at this with a clear mind, all that kind of stuff. Or you might say, this isn't the relationship for me. Okay, this isn't for me. This is not a match. But can you see how this is more about you than it is about the other person? And for anybody listening, this is true about anything in life. Okay, I'm not saying what someone is or isn't doing is your fault. Okay, but I am saying what you want to create for yourself and what you want to experience is up to you. And if things aren't a match for what you want, what is it that you are prepared to do about that? Okay. Are you prepared to invest in yourself? Are you prepared to learn something that can really empower you and then take another look? What is it that you want to create and what are you prepared to do about it? Right? That, life is, and this is the whole thing about living life from a place of sovereignty, is that people taking ownership over themselves and how they're showing up. Okay. It's not always the easiest path, but it's unbelievably liberating. Unbelievably liberating. It's the most beautiful place to live your life from. But yeah, it can be confronting at times. It can be tricky, but it's on the other side of that is this extraordinary experience of life, this lightheartedness, this way of being in the world that you have to experience to truly understand that, as many of you have heard me say before, it's the greatest things that have happened to me. And, as many of my students feel as well. So you've got to ask yourself, if something is not a match for you, what are you prepared to do about it? And if you're sitting there waiting for the other person to change, just understand what you're choosing, whether you're aware of it or not, is to place that decision as to what I want to create for myself in the hands of somebody else. The minute you place that in the hands of somebody else, you increase your level of suffering exponentially. Okay? You're no longer sovereign, and you're now like a puppet on a string. Okay? I have been in that place before, and it feels horrible. Okay? And it affects everything. It affects your health. It affects your ability to make decisions. It affects how you show up to work. I mean, I could go on everywhere. It affects everything. Okay? So there's a pretty big price that we pay for avoiding that path of taking ownership over our stuff, learning something, being sovereign, creating what we want, being in charge of our own lives, right? Yep, that's a path and it takes courage, but it's an amazing path and anybody and everybody's capable of it. I know a lot of us get frightened and we hand it over to somebody else, okay? But I really wonder sometimes if people truly understand the price they pay for that when you hand over your sovereignty to someone else. Now, you know you're handing it over to someone else when you're waiting for the other person to change. Okay? When you're waiting for them to be different so you can be okay. You have absolutely handed your power over, handed your sovereignty over. You've handed your well-being over. Okay? And there's only one way to take it back. But you have to be prepared to go on that path. And yes, it can be bumpy. Yes, it can be challenging, but it's the most extraordinary, expansive thing. Okay, this is how we expand. Life is all about expanding. Remember, you guys have heard me say this before. We're either repeating, okay? We're either repeating, or we're expanding. Okay? Repeating or expanding. Repeating or expanding. Now you've got to get honest with yourself and say, what am I doing? Am I repeating or am I expanding? Now, if you can see that you're repeating, then the question is, what do I want to do about that? What am I prepared to do about that? Okay, that's all. And look, it's not right or wrong. You might sit there and say, I'm not ready to do anything. I'm okay to repeat right now. That's okay too. Like, I'm not saying repeating is wrong, but there is a price that you pay, and it's just about understanding what you are choosing. All right, because so many of us can't see what we're choosing. We think it's being chosen for us. All right. And that is not how it works. You are the one doing the choosing always. Okay. Anyway, I hope that helps, guys. I really do. It's very important what I've just said here. Very, very important. Hey, Mick. Thanks for saying hi. Thanks for your beautiful words. These are about relatable. I know Dee's has been in my relatable program. And Mick, you're also in relatable as well. I've only just joined, and what you're talking about is like perfect timing. Yep. I thought that might be. I know a little bit about what's going on in the background for you, Mick. So, yes, I thought that might be perfect timing for you and for anybody else. We all need to hear this from time to time. Okay. Okay. So, going to the next question. Hi there. I loved the podcast episode you did with Carly. I really need to hear this as I've been trying to repair my marriage unilaterally for the past year. I would love it if you can do a podcast on trying to repair if the spouse has given up and he's not ready to do the work. Well, to be honest, I think I've just answered this with what I just shared. Okay. So, what this person is saying, my husband has given up and puts up a wall whenever I attempt to reconnect. Is there anything you can suggest to inspire him to make an effort? I've taken full responsibility for my part. Good for you. Like, awesome. Good for you, right? In the deterioration of our marriage, and have made internal and authentic changes in myself. Unfortunately, he's not willing to let go of past resentments and refuses to own up to his own mistakes. Well, I guess the first thing that you want to do is when someone is not receptive, okay, You've got to know clearly within yourself that you're showing up from a place of neutrality, that you're bringing goodwill, that you're not loaded. And so many of us are without realizing it. It's our biggest blind spot, and definitely something that you get to see within yourself as you learn the understanding I teach and relatable, because you really get to know yourself in a way where you can actually see whether you are loaded or not, because we can think we're not loaded when we are. Okay, so I want to say that, because when we come to something loaded, it has the other person kind of cycle around their stuff, right? The other thing that I would say is there's nothing you can do, honey, if someone isn't willing to look inside themselves. And there's a number of reasons why people do that. I'm not judging anybody here. Some people don't want to look there because they don't believe they're capable of change, and it just seems too terrifying, and they don't want to confirm that for themselves. Okay, they don't want to they don't want to you know what I mean? They don't want to face the fact that they're incapable of change because they fear that. And a lot of people do. A lot of people don't think they can change. And so they don't want to face that. And there's lots and lots of reasons why people don't want to look in that direction. But I think it's a matter of being really curious and really calm, okay? And coming from that curious, neutral, grounded space inside yourself and sort of saying, look, this is what I really want. I want to feel connected to you. I want to put the past where it belongs. This is what I want to create with you. But I just feel that when I reach out, you get caught up in everything that's happened. Is there anything that I can say that can help you put that down so that we can connect and move forward together? Right? Is there anything that, see, I'm curious. I'm trying to see their reality. Is there anything I can say? Is there anything in that I can bring to the table that we can talk about that would help you with that? And see where they end up. But ultimately, if you've come from that space of goodwill and all of those things, and you truly know to your core that you have, and I want to preface this by saying a lot of people think they have when they haven't, then you have to decide what you want to create for yourself. And it really relates back to what I was just saying about, if you're waiting for someone else to change in order to get on with your life, then you really have to ask yourself, is this what I want to create for myself? What do I want to create for myself? And is this a match for it? And what do you really want to do about that? Now, you might say, it doesn't matter, I'm going to stay where I am. And that's fine. But just understand what you're choosing. And there is a price that you're paying for that. I promise you, when we embrace that part of ourselves that wants more, that knows there's something not quite right, when we embrace it, when we listen to it, and we go on that journey, yes, it can be bumpy and difficult and frightening and all of those things, but there's amazing stuff on the other side of that. Okay, because that's, we expand into something else. Our whole energy changes, and we attract very, very different things into our life as a reflection of that. Okay, so I really hope that helps. Get curious first, and ask, what is there anything that you need that would really that I can help in some way, or bring something else to the table that's going to help you put that down, because I really want to move forward for you, and just see where you end up from there. And if nothing changes, then yeah, you've got to decide what you want to do with that. Hey Miriam, thanks for saying hi. It's my pleasure, honey. Really, it was a pleasure to meet you, and I hope that it was helpful. Brian, who would have thought I'd be going into my third year of Relatable so soon, Fiona? Absolutely the best decision I made was to join, because everything after that moment in time has been life-changing. Absolutely beautiful way to live in love. Oh, Brian, you're so, I've got to say, Brian is such a beautiful soul, and a wonderful example of what's possible. And he's such a fantastic support to the students in the Relatable Facebook community, and on the calls and everything. You're just amazing, Brian. It's such a privilege and a pleasure to have you with us. Truly, you're just a beautiful soul. And there are some wonderful, beautiful souls in the Relatable community that really are. Lots of wonderful men who are speaking up and sharing and enjoying being able to do that. Lots of wonderful women, just lots of wonderful humans, right? Because we're looking at our own humanness. And when you look in that direction, everything becomes easier. Okay, well, I'm just going to check in with you guys as I reach the 35 minute mark. Has what I've shared with you today been helpful? Does anyone have any more questions? Is there anything else I can help you with today? How can I be of service? It's okay if there aren't any more questions. If we are at the end of the live, that's okay too. But I just want to check in for those of you that um, are here today. Is there something on your mind? Is there something you'd like some clarity around? How can I help you? And I'm truly here to help. Brian, it's a beautiful family that most people would never believe would be in one place. Yes, it's very true. True. It's amazing, amazing space. It's my honor. Yeah, love it. Love it, Brian. Okay. Anybody else got a question, comment, something that they want to share, ask? Has this been helpful, what I've been sharing with you today? I had 3 questions. I better just check, and I've answered those 3 questions. So if anyone else has got one, if there are no more questions, I will finish the live, and I will see you next Friday. Oh, can I share how the Facebook group works for people who may be thinking about joining? Yeah, sure. So the Relatable Facebook group, once you join Relatable, you get an invitation to join our group. And of course, everybody is learning this understanding. And so everybody is looking in the same direction, and you're really seeing that like-mindedness amongst people. And I think what's beautiful is we are not looking in the direction of the ego. So it's not like people are in there kind of judging, which we do a little bit, right? Which we inadvertently do around things, or kind of there's no competitiveness in there. There's just this love, kindness, support, understanding. If someone shares something because they're stuck, no one's in there telling you what to do, right? Or telling you how you need to be, or sharing their opinion on what you have to do, because nothing in Relatable is pointing you in that direction. And you see the ripple effect of that as people are learning this, because what they do is they hold space. What they do is point people in the direction of wisdom. What they do is point people in the direction of waking up. Really, Relatable is a journey of waking up, because so many people are asleep at the wheel of their lives. And when I say asleep at the wheel, they're asleep at the wheel because they're in their analytical mind, and they're judging, and they're projecting, and they've got opinions about everything, and they feel entitled to share their opinions about everything all of the time, right? And so they're just putting that into the world all the time, which means they are busy. They're not present. They're not grounded. They're not touched by life. They feel disappointed. They're living in a constant state, or a majority of the time, a constant state of dissatisfaction. Okay. Now, when you're living in a state of dissatisfaction and disappointment, you'll just project that everywhere you go, and you won't even realize what you're doing. And you'll wonder why your relationships feel like hard work. You'll wonder why it feels like you're trawling through mud. You'll wonder why you don't ever really feel good. Like, you feel okay, but you don't ever feel good. And that's because people go through life in this frame of mind that they can't even see that they're doing. And it's very hard for people to connect with you from that state of mind. Okay? It's really, really hard, because the energy that you're bringing out is pushing people away from you. It's not having them feel safe around you. And so people shut down and go into their own kind of world. Okay? And I see this all of the time. People who come to me where the relationship is in trouble, whether it be siblings, parents, lovers, work teams, people come to me all of the time in that frame of mind, and they don't realize what they're doing. Okay. And so this is why the awareness of this is the first step. You can't change what you can't see, right? No awareness equals no change. So when people start to get an awareness of how they're showing up, what they're creating, and not because they're doing something wrong, but just in a sense of what they're bringing to the table. Of course, this is the thing. You got to realize this about human beings. Okay? When people see things differently, they choose things differently. Okay? When people see things differently, they will choose something else. Nobody wants to live like that. Nobody. But people inadvertently create that, and they don't realize it, so they don't understand what they're creating. Okay. But when people see that, people are like, I don't want to do that. That's not what I want to create. That's not how I want to show up. That's not what I want to choose. Okay. And when they see what else is possible, of course they choose something else, because the nature of a human being is not to be in that state. That's not our true nature. That goes against our true nature. Okay. Truly. It's true. Miriam, can that type of person really change? Absolutely, Miriam. 100%. I see it all the time. all the time, because what's keeping that person stuck is not who they are, just where they go. Right? Very important distinction. What's keeping that person stuck is not who they are, it's where they go. There's a very big difference between who someone is and where they go. We get those two things confused. We think where someone goes is who they are. That's not true. And as people learn this, and this is what I teach in module 1 and 2, okay? First thing that I teach is why I call them the fundamentals of understanding, right? When people see that, it's like, oh, well, I don't want to do that. I didn't know I was doing that, right? It's like anyone, right? When people realize that, it's like anything. When we've got awareness around something, we're like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to choose that. Why would I choose that? People realize that, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. My mind's gone blank. But when they realize that the choice they're making is something they have, that they're even choosing in the first place, that there is choice, that there's there's a heap more choices on offer than what they can see. When they can see that, they will choose something else, because nobody would ever choose to live from that place. But if you don't realize what you're choosing, if you don't realize what you're creating, if you don't realize the impact of it, you just blindly go through life, right? Completely unaware. And so you can see there's just this innocence in people, right? The term narcissism gets thrown around a lot, okay? Now, I want to clarify something about this, okay? Because definitely people can exhibit narcissistic type behaviors, but that doesn't make them a narcissist, okay? There's a big difference between a true narcissist and narcissistic type behaviors. And a lot of narcissistic type behaviors get labeled as narcissist. All right. I'm very, very, very familiar with narcissism. I lived with one for many years, not many years, but a number of years ago. And it's a reason why I do what I do. Okay. So I am aware of it. I've experienced it. I've lived with it. I know the impact of it. I know how it works. Now, I have been working in this space for 13 odd years, and I've worked now with thousands of people all over the world. And I don't say that to big note myself, although it sounds like I am. I just say that to let you know I feel like I'm qualified to make this statement. I feel like I have grounds for this statement. Of all the people I have worked with, I've only come across 4 or 5 true narcissists in all of that, right? And there are definitely people that have been dragged to speak to me because their partner said, if you don't, I'll cut you off. Or a child or a parent has said, if you don't change, I'll cut you off. And so, people have come to me who've been stuck and not feeling like they can change, or not even wanting to, or frightened, and all of those things. So I really, there are very far less narcissists in the world than what everyone kind of will portray. Okay. And a narcissist does struggle to change. I will admit that, definitely, because they're lacking, they're just kind of lacking the ability to put themselves in someone else's shoes. But, okay, that is so rare, such a tiny, like minute percentage of the population. It's not funny, okay? The majority, the vast, vast, vast majority, 99.999% of people absolutely can, will, and do. Because when we see an option, we will take it every time, right? It's just sometimes we can't see what else is on offer. And that's what I love about this understanding, is people can actually see what's on offer, and they feel empowered, and they're like, I'm choosing that. And then they see what they're creating and they feel even more empowered. Empowered people make beautiful choices. Disempowered people make choices that are reflective of them. Empowered people make choices that are reflective of the whole, okay, or the we. Anyway, I hope that helps. Hey, Carly, darling, that's so lovely. I appreciate that. Thank you for saying hi. Yeah, we're all a little bit selfish. Of course we are. We can get lost in our thinking. We all kind of, all of that stuff happens. But yes, it does. Relatable does teach you. The understanding teaches you to show up from kindness and compassion, and not because you're forced to, because you feel empowered to, because you really want to, because you can see what you bring into the table and it's exciting. Okay, it's not this dreaded thing. It's like, oh wow, oh, look what I'm creating, look how I'm contributing. Because I can tell you right now, in our heart of hearts, people want to contribute to others massively. This is what people want. It's a massive driver for people. People get a huge amount of joy over knowing that they've contributed to somebody else, right? You think about it. Whether you've walked down the street and you've met the eyes of a stranger and you've smiled and you've seen them light up and smile at you back, whether it's because you've helped someone in need and you get the joy of contributing, whether it's like, do you know what I mean? We get a lot of joy out of that. There's not there's it's a very beautiful and empowering place to live. And when you actually see that that you actually have something on offer and you can do it, it's very empowering for people, right? And notice I say people, men and women, because people are like, wow, I can really do this. And I love that about human beings. You see the beauty in human beings. This is what we love to do. This is what lights us up. And when people see a pathway forward, they will choose it. Okay. Now they're not perfect. None of us is perfect. I'm not perfect. All right. But generally, that's the intention and the intent. Um, Yes, Brian, in the Facebook group, there's always replies. There's always someone to help out. There's all of that. Absolutely. There's so much love and support there. Hey, Karen. Hi, darling. It's so nice to hear from you, honey. Really, really, really lovely to hear from you, Karen. Sending you love. Really, really sending you love. I'm so happy to see you on the chat today. And of course, you, Carly, Brian, everybody, thanks so much for listening. I'm 45 minutes in, so I'm rambling now. It's time for me to switch off. And I've got to go meet a client. So I hope this has been helpful. If you've got a question, send it to hello@fionalukeis.com.au. And if you want to register for Relatable, you can do so via this link here. All right, everybody, sending you all lots and lots of love. I look forward to seeing you next Friday. Take care now. Ciao.